Mark Hunt calls out Dana White and the Fertitta brothers. Rafael Fiziev calls out Rafael dos Anjos. And also Johnny Walker versus Jamahal Hill has been made official. And I thought I'd break down all of these topics on today's MMA news reaction video, starting with Mark Hunt calling out Dana White and the Fertitta brothers. You can go over to his Instagram page and he says, Mark the Super Samoan versus Dana the Parasite White, Lorenzo Fertitta and Frank Fertitta. 5 rounds MMA. These losers, Frank Fertitta, Lorenzo Fertitta and Dana White, has sucked the life out of so many fighters, him and his scum friends. You win, I drop the lawsuit. I win, you pay every fighter you have ripped off since the UFC started. Now who would pay to see that? It's never gonna happen. But Mark Hunt, of course, has been hitting the head a lot in his career, so this might be his last-ditch effort at trying to sort of get something out of the legal situation that he's been going through with Dana White and the UFC for a very long time. Of course, there was an article that came out yesterday that said that Mark Hunt owed the UFC $400,000 in legal fees, and that came out, and apparently he was ordered to pay that amount to them. But then again, Mark Hunt says that this isn't even true, and someone's completely made up the headline, and he said, where did you get this info from? Did you just make it up or what? Apparently to Christopher Taylor, who's apparently the guy who wrote the article that completely made it up. But apparently this was a true story. He was ordered to pay this, but Mark Hunt seems to think otherwise, so maybe this is just some kind of slow news day where someone's come up with a random story, but I thought it would be quite legitimate. In all honesty, I didn't think it was a lie as soon as that story came out, but Mark Hunt has claimed that it is in fact a lie. And then he called out Dana White and Lorenzo Fertitta and Frank Fertitta, and he said, let's go 5 rounds in a fight, me versus you 3, and that's never gonna happen. But it's fun and it made headlines. I just really feel bad for Mark Hunt right now because He's had a long, illustrious career where he's made a lot of money. I think he made something like $750,000 to show for every single fight, Brock Lesnar and onwards. Of course, the UFC knew that Brock Lesnar was on roids when he first took on Mark Hunt, or when he ever took on Mark Hunt. And of course, Mark Hunt's been suing them since that situation, saying that they did him wrong, they did him dirty, they let him in there with a guy that was on roids. But the problem with Mark Hunt's case is, and the reason why I believe it's taken so long is, first of all, the UFC have really good lawyers, so they're not just going to let you get money out of them. They're going to fight it till the very end and make sure they don't go down as being sued and it being successful, and then it will sort of encourage other fighters maybe to do the same thing and see if they can get something out of it. Mark Hunt's kind of like the biggest likelihood of something happening from a lawsuit, because again, they did know that Brock Lesnar was on roids. But the UFC have got really, really great lawyers. They're a massive corporation. They're worth so much money. They will not just let someone get money out of them. And now they arguably want some money back for the $400,000, but at the same time, Mark Hunt's biggest problem with his case is, you fought for the UFC 5 times after they did you wrong and completely used you and threw you aside and put you in there with a guy who was on roids. So his case is like a really tough one for like a legal team to get behind, or even like a court to get behind, because you were wronged by this company so badly, you decided to fight out the rest of your contract with them and get paid the money that they were offering you to get paid after that Brock Lesnar fight. So it's a bit of a problem, because you can't say, they did me wrong, I never wanted to see him again, they completely ruined my career, when in fact, they made your career afterwards by paying you shit tons of money to continue fighting, and you were more than willing to accept that under the situation. Like, even though they ripped you off, and they put you in there with a guy that was on roids and risked your life and stuff like that, you were still willing to fight under their contract for the money that they were offering you. And I feel like this is a little bit of a weak point in Mark Hunt's case, but either way, he's suing. He's still going on with this lawsuit. I don't know how much money he's got left to continue through with this, because it feels like it's been going on for the past however many years, like 5 years or so. And Mark Hunt somehow still has the funds to pay this legal team to continue the prosecution. Arguably, what the UFC is going to do and what the UFC lawyers are going to do, Are they just going to prolong the entire thing and just pray that Mark Hunt runs out of money? And maybe them sort of ordering this 400,000 is just another attack at the sort of savings of Mark Hunt that he has to even go after them legally. Because, in my opinion, Mark Hunt should have never have done this. He should have saved up a bit of money in the first place, maybe, and then gone after the UFC. Or, if he had such a big problem with being put in there with a roid cheat, and he had such a big problem with the UFC as a company because they'd done him wrong, maybe he shouldn't have fought out the rest of his fights on his contract and continued his career under the UFC, getting paid $750,000 every single time to show up. Kind of a tough situation to get behind Mark Hunt, but I do feel bad for him. So it is, I do want to get behind him. He was done completely wrong, but it's hard to get behind him believing that he'll be successful. So I would advise Mark Hunt to, I don't know, keep going, I guess. Maybe it'll work out for him if he has that kind of money. Like, if you're doing well financially and you're still bringing in a lot of money to continue this legal fight, maybe you should continue doing it. But I just don't see any world where this works out for Mark Hunt. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. They're just going to prolong the entire thing. And he won't have as much money as the UFC does to continue this. And eventually he'll give it up and he'll just be that guy that got wronged, that got nothing out of it. Maybe there's like a fairy tale ending where Mark Hunt gets paid out $100 million by the UFC and he donates it to other fighters in New Zealand to build up the industry, and he retires and sails off into the sunset nice and calm and everything works out fine. I just don't really see it happening. But, you know, call out Dana White for a fight, I guess, because that'll work. It got 7k likes. That's the sad thing about it, you know. This guy is arguing that he should have been paid millions throughout his career. Your post talking about how you should have been paid millions got 7,000 likes. I think, like, it was really good that you were paid 750,000. But yeah, I really hope Mark Hunt succeeds. Wow, that would have been a weird. Mike Hunt is a very unfortunate set of names. But either way, I wonder if he has a brother or something. Very unlucky. But Mark Hunt, I hope that he succeeds in his lawsuit. I just don't think there's any chance because he continued to fight for them after they wronged him so badly out of his career. I just don't know. But good luck, Mark Hunt. We'll see how it goes down. Sad that this is what it's come to, but maybe you should team up with Jake Paul. Who knows? Moving on to another story, which is Rafael Fiziev calling out Rafael dos Anjos, and he made a very weird call out on his Instagram where he's lounging on like a sun lounger, and he calls out Rafael dos Anjos with like a Kung Fu Panda quote, I feel like, from Master Oogway. He says something like, what was the quote from the film? The, yesterday is mystery, tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. Whatever that one is. That's how Master Oogway says it in the film. And then Rafael Fiziev called out Rafael dos Anjos, wants a battle of the Rafaels to see who is the best Rafael in the UFC. And yeah, that quote is just everywhere nowadays. I watched Kung Fu Panda when I was younger. One of the best films I've seen, at least cartoon-wise. In terms of cartoon animated films, I think Kung Fu Panda's way up there. It was a good call-out, but I feel like it's being overused nowadays. You know? It's a good quote, though, right? But I just don't know how, I don't know how that quote has anything to do with calling out someone for a fight. It's just a quote about the time space continuum, really. You know, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present, whatever he says in the film. But either way, Rafael Fiziev, good call out. I like the Rafael dos Anjos matchup. I want to see that matchup desperately because that's the one that makes sense right now. You see a lot of fighters nowadays calling out people that they have no chance of getting a matchup with whatsoever. So I'm glad that Rafael Fiziev is making a pretty educated call out of Rafael dos Anjos. I mean, I think it should be like the main event of a fight night, maybe. I don't want to put this one on the main card of a pay-per-view. Feel like it'll get overshadowed. I feel like Fiziev is a big enough name now. I mean, he has quite a few followers now, 346,000. He's blowing up on Instagram. He's getting a lot of following because of his post-fight call-outs of Hasbulla and Vince Vaughn, and he's sort of getting in that sort of mainstream mode of social media where he's picking up some good following on the internet. But yeah, Rafael Fiziev, realistic call-out. I mean, in the lightweight division right now, there's not really many matchups that would take a guy like Rafael Fiziev. maybe Rafael dos Anjos is that guy. I feel like a lot of the lightweights right now are maybe holding back a little bit just in case there's a chance a McGregor matchup for themselves, because arguably if they take another fight in the meantime, there's no way they're even going to be considered for a McGregor comeback fight. But I think RDA might be sitting out on the sidelines after his injury and thinking to himself, well, I could be the guy that McGregor comes back against. We had a backstage altercation last time at the last event where he fought Poirier in the trilogy, so why not? It would make some sense to do McGregor versus Rafael dos Anjos, but I like Fiziev versus dos Anjos, and I like it happening immediately, in March, in April, whenever they want to do it. Is there a March card that doesn't yet have a main event? Nope. Darren Till, Uriah Hall's probably going to main event that London card, so I can imagine maybe in April they could do a main event of a fight night with Rafael dos Anjos versus Rafael Fiziev. That would be the perfect situation. Or maybe they do that matchup for February the 19th, which doesn't have a main event. February the 19th. Come this Saturday, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks away. So we're about 6.5 weeks away from that, just over 6.5 weeks away from that card. And there's no main event. And there's only one fight so far announced on the main card, and that's Kyle Daukaus versus Julian Marquez. Not the best look for the UFC this late, this close to the card, not really having a main event or anything on the main card. So I think if they could sort of hurry together this matchup in the meantime and make it for that card, that would be a perfect situation. Natural progression up the rankings for Rafael Fiziev. I believe he would beat Rafael dos Anjos. I don't think dos Anjos could out-grapple him. I think maybe in a 5-rounder, which is why I want it to be a 5-rounder, there would be some kind of intrigue about Rafael dos Anjos maybe taking him into deep waters, surviving the early barrage of Rafael Fiziev and then sort of having Fiziev slow down the way he did against Bobby Green. But I just don't feel like Rafael dos Anjos can as effectively stay in the pocket as Bobby Green did against Rafael Fiziev without getting chinned after draining down to 155. Rafael dos Anjos is not a young guy anymore. He's been around for a while. He's had his damaging fights in his career. He didn't look great against Paul Felder down at 155. Maybe now that he's gone back down there, he can like readjust himself and have a bit of an easier cut this time around and maybe have a better performance. But in the lightweight division right now, you've got number 11 Fiziev, number 6 Rafael dos Anjos. Fiziev's beat a lot of good guys, including Brad Riddell in his last fight, who's still ranked number 14. So he definitely deserves the jump up out of any of them. Maybe Gillespie could earn a jump up over him. That would make a bit more sense because Gillespie beating some great guys as well. But Rafael Fiziev, he's on a tear right now. He's undefeated in the UFC. Oh, no, he isn't. He lost to Magomed Mustafayev. But since then, he's been undefeated on a tear through the lightweight division. And I think they should give him a matchup with Rafael dos Anjos. Mainly because I just want to see these fucking fights made. Get these fucking fights made. We ain't got time for this shit. February 19th is 6.5 weeks away. We have one fight on the main card, and it's Kyle Daukaus versus Julian Marquez. Please, get some fights made. Let's get going. We got to fucking stack up next year because January is weak. God, January is weak. After a month off from the UFC, we're coming back to fucking Chikadze, Qatar. It's a good card. I like the card, actually. But it's not like a comeback after a month off kind of card. And neither is the fucking pay-per-view because it's one of the worst we've seen over the past fucking year or so. So why? Why are these the cards to come back to? I have no idea, but hopefully February gets a bit spicier with Rafael Fiziev versus Rafael dos Anjos. And I do believe that Fiziev would beat him. I think he'd outstrike him, probably get a KO win at some point. He's bigger than Rafael dos Anjos. He's quicker than Rafael dos Anjos. He's taken less damage. I don't see RDA with that kind of power right now in his career to land a good shot on Fiziev and rock him and put him off balance. I could just see Fiziev kicking the shit out of RDA for as many rounds as he needs to before eventually getting a finish or a KO victory. But other than that, though, there is a bit of interest seeing a guy go 5 rounds. So if they're going to make this matchup, make it the main event of a fight night. It's a worthy main event of a fight night with a good co-main event underneath it. And speaking of a good co-main event, but also make it a main event of a fight night because I love seeing guys go 5 rounds. before they even get to a title shot. It just reveals so much more about them and makes the sort of title fight way more interesting, because if they don't go 5 rounds until they get their title shot, it's just another thing stacked against a contender and makes it a little bit less competitive, because you can always say, well, it's a close fight, but he's never been 5 rounds before and this guy has, so he's got an advantage. And I just think it makes it way more competitive if the guy coming up has also been 5 rounds, just like the champion has. But either way, I don't even know if Olives has gone 5 rounds. I don't think he has. But either way, moving on. Speaking of the co-main event, if you have this as a main event and you want a good co-main event underneath it, they just made the co-main event for that very card. Jamahal Hill versus Johnny Walker is set for February 19th, and that's really good matchmaking. I'm going to go with Jamahal Hill getting a KO victory here because, listen, Johnny Walker is not, like, you can't overlook this man. Like, I don't want to do that, because he's still a physical freak and he's got power in his hands and he can finish a fight at any moment. And maybe he even goes out there against Jamahal Hill and just out-grapples him because of his freak genetic strength advantage that he has over these other light heavyweights. I mean, you can just look at Johnny Walker and Jamahal Hill and see who's going to be, like, the faster, stronger guy. But at the same time, Jamahal Hill's got really slick hands, improved them for the Jimmy Crute fight. He's got decent enough takedown defense, I guess you could say, but he did kind of get in some trouble against Paul Craig. But I don't consider Johnny Walker the same level of jiu-jitsu or grappler as a Paul Craig in that division. But for Jamahal Hill, he gets what he wanted, a jump up the rankings. It makes all the sense in the world. Right now at light heavyweight, you've got number 12 Jamahal Hill versus number 10 Johnny Walker. And I think it's just a fight that makes sense. So I'm glad they made the matchup happen. And this is a good co-main event of that fight night. So that's what I would do. Rafael Fiziev, Rafael dos Anjos main event. Jamahal Hill versus Johnny Walker, co-main event, and you can add a sprinkling of other decent fights on that card as well, and that February card will be fixed. But this is a good one. Looking forward to it. It's going to be a first round finish in my opinion either way. I reckon Walker gets slept by Hill. I do. I just think his chin's too open, and unless he sits on the outside and tries to pick at Jamahal Hill, which I still think might favour Jamahal Hill, because he will pressure and go after you and make a fight happen if it hasn't already happened, because that's something Thiago Santos won't necessarily do. He won't just sort of rush at you like he used to earlier on in his career. Jamahal Hill's still got that sort of youthful ignorance in the game to where he will go after you, and that can be a good thing. I'm not saying it like it's a bad thing, but sometimes when you haven't been chinned yet in your career, like twice, and you haven't paid the price for rushing forward, you still have that sort of confidence to sort of pressure your opponent backwards and get stuck in if they're sort of wanting to be on the outside and more pathetic in that matchup. But I'm going to go with Jamahal Hill getting this one done by KO. I just can't trust the chin of Johnny Walker. Maybe he gets a KO win back on Jamahal Hill. I just think Jamahal Hill's boxing's going to be too slick. He's got a very long reach for the division as well. And I think Johnny Walker, after his last performance of being so patient, he'll want to get after it this time. And he just seems to have no awareness of range control or anything like that. Depth perception, I guess you could say as well. And maybe he can only see out of one eye or something. I wouldn't honestly be surprised, because the guy leaves himself open in so many different situations. It still worked out for him against Ryan Spann, even though he got dropped. He popped back up and landed those elbows behind the ear of Ryan Spann. I don't see that happening with Jamahal Hill. I reckon he gets this one done by KO in the first round. But it's a great matchup, and it does mean that the winner of this one will have a ton of hype moving forward and probably get a matchup against, like an Ozdemir. If they're still going to let him fight, I don't know, probably a Volkan Ozdemir, right? Hey, Volkan Ozdemir, here's another fucking terrifying prospect for you to take on. Go and lose to him. Essentially, is what Ozdemir does. Ozdemir is the Brad Tavares of the light heavyweight division, let's be real. Moving on to another matchup that got made recently, which was Sadiq Youssef versus Alex Caceres has been announced. It hasn't been announced, it's announced as in the works, which means it's going to happen, most likely. Sadiq Youssef versus Alex Caceres. March 12th fight night. Of course, Alex Caceres just competed on the grappling whatever it was, Cage Fury grappling, where Kevin Holland was on there and all those other guys. Got the win, I believe, in that one by guillotine as well, or rear naked choke, I believe. Rear naked choke, I think it was, in that grappling match. Staying active at the end of the year, turning around for this next year in March, on March the 12th. And that's a decent card, March the 12th as well. We've got some good fights on there. We've got Thiago Santos, Magomed Ankalaev, Marlon Moraes versus Song Yadong, Alex Pereira versus Bruno Silva. That's the main, co-main and feature fight, in my opinion. Then open up the main card with Sadiq Yousuff versus Alex Caceres. And you don't really need a rest of the card if those fights are on there, because that's a really fucking great fight card. Either way, I've got Alex Caceres having an annoying chance to win this, you know? Fuck. I feel like Caceres might get it because he's actually pretty underrated and we keep being proven of that. And Sadiq Yousuff, his chin is just very weird. And sometimes he gets wobbled by things that don't make sense. And a lot of shots from Caceres, they don't see coming. Like, he'll switch a fucking kick up there last minute when they don't even realise. After a combination with the hands, the kick comes up afterwards. And they don't even see it coming. Like, if that kind of shit lands on Sadiq Yousuff, I could definitely see him getting rocked. And then having his back taken. And then being rear naked choked. Man. I don't know who's going to be the favourite here. I haven't seen any odds for this matchup because it only got announced a couple of hours ago, but this is probably going to be close to evens, right? If they do Caceres as a big underdog, I'll probably pick him in this fight, in all honesty. I won't fucking let a Caceres underdog pick go to waste again. I'll probably jump on this time, but Sadiq Yousuff, very dangerous. Also quite young as well. I believe he's 28 years of age, maybe even 27 years of age. 28 years of age, turns 29 in May, so obviously we're hoping that Sadiq Yousuff gets this one done because he's a younger guy, he's more promotable, he's got a bit more of a following behind him more recently as well, but Caceres is also a big name, but it just doesn't look good for the featherweight division if Alex Caceres starts making another run. I actually would not have made this matchup, would never have made this fight. I think this is stupid matchmaking, in all honesty. I think Shane Burgos should have fought Alex Caceres, they're both coming off wins. Burgos probably beats him as well, but also could lose, but probably beats him as well. Get some momentum back for Shane Burgos. And then you would have done Sadiq Yousuff versus Dan Hooker, both coming off losses. I thought that would make more sense, but you know what? I might trust Caceres. Weird world we're in, eh? Glover's champ. Brunson's fighting for a title elimination bout. Here comes Caceres. What a fucking sport. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.